Hey everybody, I'm going to challenge you a bit here. You play Alpha Centauri on the lower difficulty levels. Is this experience everything that you want it to be? Or does the game end up as a three-way race between you, Chairman Yang, and the fungus, with all the other factions just floundering and not terraforming at all? But imagine this. Instead, you could play on a higher difficulty level, maybe even with the Thinker mod installed, which makes the AI smarter. It puts you in cool and unique situations where decisive action is needed, the factions and the world around you feel alive and real, the choices you make matter. I hope you are as hyped as I am here, but first, you gotta learn how the game works. You gotta get good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alpha Centauri. Mistake number 1, not spending your money. This game pretty much forces you to accumulate cash each turn. You typically face a big penalty if you turn up the tech slider too high. But people sending me saves are sitting on hundreds of credits for no reason. Spend your credits. Not spending your energy is like taking your retirement savings and cramming them in an envelope underneath your bed. It won't hurt you, but it's a huge missed opportunity. Credits should make you feel like they're burning a hole in your pocket. It's better to buy something good now than something perfect later. Ideally, do both. In Alpha Centauri, the ratio on gold rushing is super generous. On buildings, it's 2 credits for 1 mineral. Now, you need at least 10 minerals in the box if you don't have the Thinker mod, otherwise the cost is doubled. But if you're not facing that penalty, this is a really good rate. In Civ 3, that ratio is 4 to 1. 2 to 1 is insane. Typically, that is a better return on money spent than blind research will give you. If the game allowed me to run 0% labs at the start without penalty, I would, and I'd dump all the money into my development. Let's take recycling tanks. Typically, rushing to finish the tanks will set you back about 60 credits. They generate 1 energy, 1 mineral, 1 food every turn. In cities that need food, 1 mineral and food are each worth about a little less than 2 energy. So that means that rushing the recycling tanks will pay itself back in about 14 turns or something. That is an insane turnover time. With formers, it's not as easy to calculate, but the same principle applies. If you have the credits on hand, do it. Buy the thing. I know you might want to save money for an emergency, but that's not a good way to think about things. Ideally, you want a situation where you have enough coming in each turn to handle any emergency that comes up, even if you ended the last turn with an empty treasury. Get that snowball rolling soon. Mistake number 2, not terraforming. Formers are cheap here, they do not cost population, and base yields are very low in Alpha Centauri. You need worked tiles to make the game playable. So build formers, build them early, start terraforming soon. A good target is to have all your worked tiles in a city be fully improved. This applies even to marginal cities. Inefficiency does exist in Alpha Centauri, but aside from unhappiness that it brings empire-wide, it's pretty mild, and crucially it does not apply to minerals. Even your most faraway cities will have a ton of production. And if those cities aren't high enough in population, or if they have happiness issues, you can send supply crawlers there from your core to go draw yields from all the improved tiles in the fringes of your empire. Also, if you plan on pop booming, you will very rapidly go from having too many worked tiles to not having enough. When you're done the core worker jobs, there's still a bunch of other useful things for your formers to do. Change elevation, create rivers, build sensor towers, and just road towards the enemy. Having roads and a city in the face of your enemy makes attacks on them a lot easier. The one reason I'd be concerned with formers is support. If you're playing Mariam or any faction that will opt for additional support policies like the Human Hive, don't worry about this. Spam formers, have too many, finish everything soon. But if you're playing as Morgan, or if you want to make an early switch to democratic social engineering, watch out just a little. Having extra units will sap away minerals from your cities due to support costs, so here you're maybe justified in running a little lean on formers, but only in the early game. And still, if there's a tile nearby where you'd get extra minerals from using a former on it, just buy the former as soon as possible. Mistake number 3, not using the psych slider. Let me clear up exactly how this works. The psych slider converts energy coming from your bases into happiness at a rate of 2 to 1. That is not a great rate, and on its own, it's often only marginally useful. It means you can avoid using specialists, but specialists are better here than in Civ 2, so the alternative is not terrible. Using a specialist early on gives you 2 happiness. The psych slider costs 4 energy to give you the same effect of 2 happiness. So for the psych slider to be good, 4 energy has to be worse than the yields from assigning 1 citizen that would otherwise be a specialist. I'll let you sort that one out yourself. It's good to have it as an option, but typically there are better solutions to happiness issues early on. However, As the game progresses, you will get multipliers on your psych spending, mostly from buildings that are already good. The max multiplier is plus 200%, or plus 250% if you have the Virtual World secret project. Suddenly, those ratios become pretty tempting. In Alpha Centauri, you can also get Golden Ages if you have enough happiness. My main issue with the happiness slider in Civ 3 is that you have to set a uniform rate across your empire, and so high commerce cities will end up with too much happiness. There's a slight reward for happiness, We Love the King days, but it's not significant. Golden Ages in Alpha Centauri, on the other hand, kick ass. They give you plus 2 growth, which helps you hit that key plus 6 threshold required for a population boom, and you get plus 1 commerce in all tiles. Fantastic bonus, and the psych slider can help you get it. So what all of this means is that happiness works quite differently. In Civ 3, you would use the slider to basically channel early game gold into production and food, and late game you keep it lowered outside of emergencies. In Alpha Centauri, it's the inverse. Early on, I'd say it's mostly useful in emergencies, but as the game progresses, due to the multipliers, it gets increasingly tempting. Toy around with it, see how much it will help your cities and how much you need to use to get a golden age. Mistake number 4 is not tech trading. Imagine this, you're running the 400-meter dash and your rival approaches you before the race. He says, "Hey, let's both start 10 meters ahead of everybody else." This is allowed for some reason in the race that you're running, but you say no. You couldn't imagine giving such a formidable opponent a leg up. You have your pride. And so he goes to the other athletes and they strike deals with each other. And so when the race begins, you're 50, 100, 200 meters behind everybody else. But you have your pride, right? This is just game theory. At worst, it is prisoner's dilemma. If you don't give Yang doctrine air power, someone else will. You might as well get a tech for it. But more often, it's just hugely beneficial. And if you're worried about making a particular AI too strong, just trade with more factions. Also, humans are just better at using text than computers are. Also, did you know that there's a rubber band effect with text in this game? So if you're giving the AI more text, it actually makes them text slower. It's not as bad as it seems. If you are offered a trade, take it, almost without exception unless you really know what you're doing, and go looking for trades often. And buying text is usually good too if you have the money on hand. Mistake number 5, not exploiting the differences of particular leaders. Leaders in Alpha Centauri are programmed differently, and you should treat them differently. For example, here is a table showing you how you should ask for techs. Different factions respond better to different ways of asking for the same thing. Keep these in mind. Making friends is essential in Alpha Centauri. Computer opponents here can be unbelievably dickish and stubborn, but they can be total bros too. They can give you a ton of techs or units. One really key thing for making friends is matching their civics. Here's a table of every faction's preferred social engineering options. Having a reliable ally is usually more important for victory than any particular social engineering benefit. Keep an open mind. Be flexible. If you do not explicitly befriend them, usually by joining their wars or matching their desired civics, most of the factions are more on the asshole side of the spectrum. Giving into their threats is usually a good thing. I'd encourage you to do it often. It typically makes them like you more. Stop thinking about what is fair or right. Start thinking about how you can cruise to an easy victory. In this game, I was kicking Yang's ass. I gave up a city to make peace because I needed to move on. I had more pressing threats on the other side of the map, and Yang had no techs for me to steal. I'd rather be fighting someone I can steal techs from. It's not fair for him to ask me for a city here when he's losing, but it's still smart for me to accept. Yang is an asshole. In this case, it gets him one city, but it will cost him a lot more than that throughout the course of the game. And the AI here will often fight each other as a result of their assholishness, whereas you can stay at peace. As a side note, my favorite AI interaction in the whole game is that Yang will call you up while you're at war to trade texts with you. Then, after you agree and the trade goes through, he'll refuse to even open peace negotiations with you. He's an interesting dude, what can you say? Mistake number 6 is not using probes. Spies are insane in this game. You don't really need to have a high probe score in order to use them. You don't need money either, you just need good setup on a few cities of whatever faction you're targeting. That means you need the ability to get your spies into the city. If you are at war with a faction that is not completely floundering, you should be spying on them. Tech stealing and infiltration are the 2 best missions, but all of them have their uses. Remember to design naval probes, if you haven't already. A key concept to understanding how to use probes best is understanding movement, so let's talk about that here. You need to reach an enemy's city with a movement point left in order to spy on them. Movement costs are as followed. Right-click on a tile if you're not sure what the terrain type is. Your units can also use enemy roads. Elite spies get +1 movement, Damaged units have reduced movement. With naval probes, keep that in mind, it's especially important. You don't want to be one tile short. And plan the path you're going to take. Build roads towards the AI, and also plant cities 2 tiles apart so that you can creep your borders just a little bit closer to get right up next to them with your probes. Remember that if you succeed in a mission, your next mission will be more likely to fail against the same city, and you never know, the AI could have a spy guarding one of the cities, making it a bad target. So try to set up versus multiple cities before the war begins. Naval bases help with this a lot, since naval probes have 4 movement, but on land, make sure you use roads. So that's it. I'm trying to post more videos about Alpha Centauri. I have a few ideas about what to do next, including video essays, beginner walkthroughs, and more advanced tactics. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see.